So Newcastle United trying to finish the transfer window off in style. Eddie Howe has said for quite a while now that he wants one player through the door, and when you look at the calibre of player that they've been linked with in the last couple of days, then I think that's it's really key, because for me, particularly if we're going to pick out a player to mention, Kieran Tierney at Arsenal, who clearly has no future with the Gunners. Mikel Arteta making that quite clear, just by the fact that he's not prepared to pick him on a regular basis. If he did come to Newcastle, he would be a regular. It would be probably what you would say the icing on the cake for the back four, given that they've already spent a lot of money on people like Kieran Trippier coming in. He was the first signing of the regime back in January 2022, and then Sven Botman last summer, spending a lot of money on him, coming in from Lille in France. Teamed up with Fabian Schär, and Kieran Tierney would then be that final piece of the jigsaw, if you like, defensively, and Newcastle would then, on paper, have a defence that is capable of not only challenging for Champions League football again, but potentially putting together a challenge for maybe the top two places. We have to wait and see how that would unfold, but certainly looking at the activity this week, Newcastle making fresh contact with Arsenal and Tierney, trying to get that deal done. They know they've got to be creative. They've already said that. Eddie Howe stated that last week, that might have to be a loan deal, could be a loan deal with a view to a permanent. So that's a big possibility for Newcastle moving forward. Kieran Tierney at Arsenal, definitely of big interest, has been for probably more than 7 months now at Newcastle. They've been looking at him, and certainly before the takeover, Newcastle were linked heavily with him again when he was at Celtic, but Newcastle weren't prepared to pay what they thought under old ownership, 25 million. They thought that was too much, and ended up going to Arsenal, where it's been a relative success for him up until quite recently, where he's lost his place. So Newcastle trying to take advantage of that one, keep a real eye on that going into it. As I say, there was that fresh contact. Left back, very much a position that Newcastle have gone back to. Obviously they got the right back in Livramento, and earlier in the pre-season we know they signed Sandro Tonelli, who had a brilliant debut the other day, and Harvey Barnes, who also chipped in with a goal on his Premier League debut at St James's Park. So things have gone as well as possible so far in the window. As I say, Newcastle's looking to put that final piece of the jigsaw in, and after that I think everyone will settle down and go into what will be a tough winter with Champions League, but certainly one where Newcastle will feel they're equipped to deal with the challenges that are ahead for them. And Eddie Howe said it himself that this summer wasn't about a major overhaul. It was about bringing in the players that were going to improve the quality of the squad. So it was quality, not quantity. And Newcastle against Aston Villa the weekend showed they were more than capable of putting a challenge in against one of the teams that are fancied to finish in Europe again. But they made pretty much easy work of it at the weekend, and I think Eddie Howe will be delighted with that start of the season. Not completely satisfied, he never is, but certainly will be pleased with the way Newcastle have started, because they've set the tone now going into that game against Manchester City. And before we move on to that Manchester City game, I think it's worth just a few comments on some of the things that have sort of been said since Newcastle's first game of the season. And interesting that on Monday Night Football, Newcastle were not the pick of many pundits to even finish in the top 6 this season. So that's it probably is music to the ears of the coach and staff that Newcastle have been written off. We also had Sir Alex Ferguson's comments about how Aston Villa played well. Yeah, he wasn't wrong on that score, but it was just an interesting, of all the things to talk about the team that are bottom of the league playing well, was a strange one. And it's Sir Alex Ferguson. He's obviously got a lot of rivalry with Newcastle in the past, and old habits die hard. So really interesting to read that. I think again it'll fire Newcastle up. We've had Jurgen Klopp talking about the technical area issues. So lots of things directed Newcastle's way. Our team's now starting to try and get in the face of Newcastle a little bit more. Is the rivalry becoming more real with a lot of these top teams? You know, it's intriguing to watch it all unfold. Certainly has spats of the 90s where Newcastle rocked into the newly formed Premier League then and started to make a lot of teams look over the shoulder. So there seems to be a little bit of that about. Moving on to the Man City game. Not a good venue for Newcastle in the Premier League. They've never won there. Is usually a very straightforward task for Man City to win. I'm not so sure it will be this time, because I think Man City have had a lot of games in a short space of time, very short turnaround, something Newcastle are going to have to get used to. But Newcastle had the full week to prepare for this, while Man City have been in Greece for the Super Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see this game at the weekend. Late kick-off, not ideal for anyone really, a late Saturday night kick-off. But for Newcastle, it's a chance to retain their place at the top of the table. This is a real acid test very early in the season. A lot of people I've spoke to say that they believe this is a good time to get Man City ticked off, get this fixture done and dusted, so that Newcastle won't have to go there later in the season when pressure might be on a little bit more. So if Newcastle can get something from this, if they can emerge with even a point, then that'll be an absolutely huge result for Newcastle. If they can win, then happy days, I'd be delighted. And Newcastle got to win there sometime. Just like they broke that Old Trafford hoodoo 10 years ago when they finally beat Manchester United. These records are there to be broken, so hopefully Newcastle can finally get that Premier League win at the Etihad Stadium. City this season, yep, on paper they're looking very strong. Made very easy work at Burnley the other night. I fully expect them to win that one. I fully expect them to be there or thereabouts for the title race themselves this season. But in terms of a good time to play, Man City could be now. So Newcastle, the fans will go there just getting right behind the team yet again, buoyed by that 5-1 win over Villa. And Eddie Howe has selection issues again, even after a 5-1 win. It's going to be difficult to see if he just picks exactly the same team again, because Harvey Barnes must surely have been kicking the door down with his 22-minute sort of run out against Villa, scoring a goal at the weekend, creating one for Callum Wilson. So he was on fire basically going into the Man City game. Be interested to see if he starts or not. Elsewhere, very difficult to get away into that 11. Tierney was absolutely fantastic at the weekend, so I can't see him stepping down for anybody. So tough work for Elliot Anderson and Sean Longstaff again to try and impress the boss in training. And the back four, you would expect it to be exactly the same again. So maybe one or two places in the front line up for grabs, but certainly the midfield seems to pick itself based on what we saw at the weekend. So game 2 of the season, we'll be looking forward to it. Man City probably won't be looking forward to it, if we're being honest. So probably the last thing they need is a rampant Newcastle team coming to face them so early in the season on the back of what's already been a long week for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. But for Eddie Howe and his players, this is an opportunity to really make another statement, this time against one of the title rivals. They certainly made a statement against Villa. This is a real opportunity to hold on to that top spot. Let's hope they can do it.